Good morning. Welcome back to the Daily Stack. Today we have Halston Valencia. Welcome to the show. Welcome. Halston's to come on and host with us. I think you're tired of looking at Avi and I. Obviously, you're not tired of looking at Rob, who starts us off on Monday morning with amazing hair. Halston, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and start hosting with you guys.
Yeah, it's exciting. We need fresh perspectives. You were on our podcast last year, and a lot of what we talked about we thought was very compelling. We have to connect with the next generation. I think what they see if they're disenfranchised by not owning homes, and they're going to be forever renters, and you will own nothing and you'll be happy, is people want to opt out of that. And you've definitely had a really good voice of seeing we need to get ahead of that now and win people over to Bitcoin as the solution versus, I think, radical communism or other solutions that we know don't work. And our esteemed guest today, Roy Kashi of Falconedge. Roy, good morning.
Having me.
Roy, just for the audience, is founder and CEO of Falconedge, Aquaspace, EDGE. It's a UK-based Bitcoin treasury company. You guys started as a hedge fund advisory firm, which we want to dive into. And then last year shifted out into, we're going to set the orange standard, and we're going to have Bitcoin on our balance sheet. We are going to focus on Bitcoin yield. And you guys are doing some interesting things. So the first topic we want to get into is Bitcoin yield once we really dive in. But first, we always like to do more of a heat check, a vibe check of how's everyone feeling. We just had a very painful weekend of Bitcoin dropping significantly. And as a long-term holder, I know both of you are probably not super concerned personally, but you are likely having conversations with those that are in panic mode. How have those conversations been going?
Halston, you go first.
Yeah, my DMs are flooded. A lot of random people I've never spoken to asking what's happening with the Bitcoin price. People from high school, people from college asking me what's happening. And I think, like you said, as a long-term holder, I'm not concerned at all. I'm still very bullish on Bitcoin. There's a lot of FUD. I think there's always going to be FUD, especially now with all this Epstein stuff, and Epstein is Satoshi, that conspiracy. I think there's just always going to be someone. I think it's, the higher ups, the people in power trying to bring this decentralized network down, which is just impossible. And so I stay ultra bullish on that. I think we're also seeing a lot of this happen because metals are ripping. And I think that now the people that aren't true Bitcoiners, the people that are in it for the trade, they're flocking to metals just out of FOMO. And so, I don't know. My best advice would be don't sell your Bitcoin for some temporary gains.
Yeah, I mean, Halston stole all my lines. I was going to say something very similar. Similar. I've had people asking me, my brother in particular, he's based in Florida. He's like, why is Bitcoin not going up? Why are the metals going up? Bitcoin doesn't go up. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I still think, and this is in times of uncertainty, and I remember putting a post out on this a few weeks ago. You've got Iran, you've still got Russia, Ukraine, you've got the Epstein, you've got the new Fed chairman in there. There's so many things going on in the world. You've got the tariffs again have reared their ugly head. So much uncertainty, both macro, economic and geopolitical issues in the world, where people are looking for safe assets, and that's still the traditional people. Flock to gold, and to a lesser extent silver. Silver has the higher volatility, so maybe that's more of the trading stock to go into to make the extra alpha. And I think they're seen as the risk-off assets, while Bitcoin is still seen as the risk-on asset, as the volatile risk-on asset with the leverage. And actually, I see it the other way. If there are times of uncertainty, you need to leave the country, you need to flee, you need to be somewhere else. You're not going to just lug your bars of gold with you, and that's the issue. Let me just shave off a bit of gold to pay for something. The risk-off assets are actually Bitcoin assets. and that mindset still hasn't changed in people's psyche, and I think that's also showing why we're so early in Bitcoin. The fact that people still don't see it as a risk-off asset, and it's still seen as that risky. Oh, it could halve, it could disappear because I don't see it physically. I can't hold it, and that's going to take a long time for people to. And it might be the next generation. As the older generation starts to move away, and the more of the younger generation that understand it and embrace it. I think it's going to take time. But for us, no, we're not concerned. I don't like giving trading advice, even that's what I did for 15 years running money. But if I'm looking at the levels here, I think 72, 73,000, it might drop. Seen to today, it's just the last hour, it started to come down again. But I'm not concerned. I mean, for us, it's an opportunity if we can to try and buy more. And I personally, again, not financial advice, encourage people to pick up as much as you can on the way down. Buy the rip, as I said.
Yeah, our guy, Lev, always never stop stacking Bitcoin. It's also good to be prepared. It sounds like you are prepared to stack Bitcoin at these levels, which is key to be able to be in a financial position to do so, still have an operating company, still be able to have cash flows, which is good planning. Tell us a little bit about, like you mentioned, you ran money for 15 years.
Yeah.
How are you advising people? What is hedge fund advisory, for our audience to understand a little bit of what that business is about outside of the Bitcoin treasury piece? Just what is hedge fund advisory on a day-to-day?
Sure. So my background and the team I work with, it's traditional finance. I started off in 99 in a startup hedge fund. I think we had about $10-15 million under management back then. That, it was a very immature market. There weren't many hedge funds around, especially not in the UK. And we grew that to 6 billion within 6-7 years. I left and I joined Brevin Howard, which is one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. And I was running money there as well. And then Henderson, before running an oil desk for 12 years. And then co-founding Falconedge with the Falcon Investment Management team. So hedge fund advisory it's a non-regulated activity for emerging managers that we have, that our client base. So we advise them from anything from strategy, particularly on the crypto side, capital intro to help them grow their assets, their risk profile, helping them with all the mundane stuff which they can't do maybe because of their size, the economics, manpower. We'll give them help with the PR, the marketing. Anything that can help them grow their funds and make their life easier while they're smaller and trying to scale. We also will help them on the compliance side as well, because we have a whole compliance onboarding team, risk analysis team. So we can offer hedge funds, which anywhere from a few million to 20-30 million. They can come to us. They want to grow, and it's hard to grow assets when you're that size. It's much easier when you're bigger. So we do everything we can to help them, and it's it started well. We've got several clients signed up, and we're looking to get a few more. We'll hopefully have a few announcements coming up soon on that, and that's the core business, which is doing well. And we've got a very strong team, which we're growing to help aid that.
So, want to know a little bit about, like you mentioned, and this is really to help people right now understand, if you're advising hedge funds, right, you're actually having discussions with institutions, which I think is a word that gets thrown around a lot. If you look at someone like CalPERS, which is like where Halston went to school, California State Pension. So one of the biggest institutions in the United States is all of these state employees that put their pension money. These are institutions that don't move fast, right? They don't make allocations on a week-to-week basis or month-to-month. Maybe on a month-to-month basis, yes, but they aren't going to be buying Bitcoin, buying the dip necessarily. They're going to allocate slowly over time. Is the conversations you're having right now in the UK, how are those shaping up and developing as the institutions and the hedge funds that you would speak with? Because if you're a hedge fund, you're more so looking at alpha and edge and arbitrage rather than looking at long-term holding.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the funds we currently have are traditional finance funds. So they're long short equity, you know, a bit of fixed income, pairs trading, credit funds, a bit of commodities. So they're not necessarily in the crypto space. We do have, we still do have some, but well, there's two parts of the business, you see. So on the Falcon Investment Management side, which is our sister company, that's been going for 11 years. That has around a little over $1 billion under the umbrella. So we're a FCA umbrella hosting business. So half of that's in crypto. Yeah. We've had the first regulated crypto fund in the UK in 2018. They're still with us. They've grown. They're very large. We have several other funds, but amongst that, we have a lot of traditional funds as well. So, and on the actual advisory side, we have a couple of crypto funds, but the majority are traditional finance. So where we're trying to help them is, I mean, and again, maybe I'm biased. I believe that every fund that's holding assets should hold some Bitcoin in particular on the balance sheet. Not interested in any other cryptocurrency. It's just, for me, it's Bitcoin only. So, and that's where we're trying to get their heads around. Trade it. There's two ways for me that you manage Bitcoin. You either trade it in and out, which is what, you know, they're doing by the perps and other strategies, or you just hold and keep buying whenever you can. Otherwise, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose money investing in Bitcoin.
Yeah. How has the conversation changed from, say, like 7-8 years ago in 2018? I mean, you work a lot with these traditional finance people. Have you seen more acceptance of Bitcoin and financialization of Bitcoin, or what are the kind of what has that conversation been like?
I mean, the majority of these, I'd say the majority in the hedge fund crypto space, they're all ex-traditional finance. You know, they moved from, you know, investment banks or running money in hedge funds to now having a crypto fund. I think it's just widely accepted. This is, for me, the best and the most credible asset to trade in the world right now. And they're more and more moving towards that. The liquidity is unparalleled. Mm-hmm. For them, it's more about finding the strategies to actually make money.
Yeah.
Versus the traditional, the ways you do it in the past with traditional financial instruments. And that's probably the challenge, which I think is why last year, with Bitcoin having, you know, its worst year in a long time, a lot of the funds had their worst year. They weren't probably able to navigate the different challenges to generate alpha in more challenging environments.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to pull this up. All right, so Roy, we love jumping into tweets. So the timeline's always fair game. Everyone's already seen it anyways, right? So silver is down 30% today. Gold's intraday range is almost 20% from high to lows today. Can't remember the last time Bitcoin ever moved that much in one day. Remind me again which one is too volatile and unpredictable.
That's right. I remember saying that. Exactly. This is
it. Right? This is very, very timely for this conversation.
Exactly. I mean, everyone just has this, which is why, coming back to, I think, Halston's earlier point, people still, you know, they still don't see Bitcoin as the one to go into for the safe haven, and they'll still flock to gold and silver because it's the safe asset. But actually, they're the more volatile assets. They're the ones who, you know, you're probably going to end up losing your pants trading this right now. And I think Bitcoin, if you look historically from where it was, obviously as a less mature asset 10 years ago to now, it trades more like the S&P. It's more steady. It's so liquid. You've got the institutions in there. You've got all the ETFs in there. You've got the investment banks now heavily trading in this. It's just this notion, I think, and again, it'll take time for people to change their thinking. The notion that Bitcoin is this black market, you know, for asset for, you know, risky, that could halve. And I still have this conversation with my parents-in-law the other day, and I was talking about it, and they said, oh, no, I would never touch Bitcoin. I can't do it. It's too scary. and you try and articulate and tell them actually it's not. It moves less than the more traditional. I said, I said to my father, would you be happy to put in your money in gold? He said, yeah, gold, I'm happy to put my money in. Of course, I can see it, I can feel it. And it doesn't move very much. I was like, okay, well, and they just bang your head on the table trying to get it through that this isn't the case anymore.
Yeah, that's what education looks like, though. It looks like it comes in different forms, and I know just from my experience, knowing friends in the UK definitely lean, very conservative in the sense of just not changing the status quo for a long time, and if you're sticking out. Or if you're trying new things, people will, in a very dry sense of humor way, kind of like nudge you back down or, queue up a little bit. So it takes education to show volatility is there with these assets. Gold, and really silver had that massive sell-off last week. And central banks are going to be able to buy these metals because they're not going to get fired. The risk of getting fired is just so much less. We talked on the stream last week about, the saying, no one gets fired for buying IBM was the big, 80s, 90s saying in corporate America, where if you made the decision to buy IBM servers, it's a pretty safe one and you're going to keep your job. And like the benefits of choosing the startup servers isn't that high. You're not going to get commission on it unless you're getting kickbacks. So it's much safer for an allocator just to buy what's known and what's been around.
By the way, volatility is good. We want volatility as well. I mean, that's where the alpha comes. That's where the opportunities come for growth. If Bitcoin wasn't volatile, things didn't move, what's the point of holding something that doesn't ever appreciate in value? You want volatility. Mm-hmm. You just want it to go up there.
Yeah. So this actually is a good point on the alpha side. So this news this week from you guys, Falconedge.
Yes, we just so yesterday we got our
applause.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we got the our listing in the US on the OTC, which is important for us. We're not the most liquid stock at the moment because we have quite a low free float. When we did our IPO, we were very conscious of how much we believe in the company as a management. So we didn't want to sell too much of it away, and we actually put a lot of our own money in on the pre-IPO, and in the IPO, we backed it. So we're very, we're very keen on making sure we still have a big say on how the company's run. And so we have a low free float, and it was allocated to quite a select, group of investors, and which is why I think the share price has held up very well in times of turmoil. But having the US quote will help us get more visibility. It will also open us up to the larger US platforms. So our shares will be able to be easily traded. So we'll be on Interactive Brokers, Fidelity, Schwab, all the other ones, which currently we're not. We have a lot of people that said, how do I buy Falconedge shares? I can't trade it in the UK with some of the retail brokers there, the online brokers there. Once you get in the US, then it should be easier for us. So hopefully that should feed through and get more interest there. But we're quite happy with things have gone. As you've seen with a lot of the treasury companies, it's been quite volatile and quite painful over the last 5-6 months, but we seem to have weathered that storm. So we're very happy with that. And I think that's down to the fact that we are doing things very differently. We are getting a yield on our Bitcoin balance sheet. And I think that will open up so many avenues for growth for us, which I don't think are necessarily available for a lot of other companies in the space.
Halston, what are you thinking?
I'm absorbing this. I think this is awesome. I'm kind of curious. How do you think this changes your strategy now? I'm a marketing girl. I'm all about marketing, and I think Saylor's dominating that in the US. Do you see Saylor and strategy as competition with your products, or where do you see this?
I don't think anyone sees Saylor and strategy as competition. They're another level that no other. Yeah, I mean, and fair and rightly so. He broke down the walls and created this the Bitcoin treasury business, and what they're doing is incredible, especially with Stretch and the preferential prefers, and I think to get to those levels, it takes a long time. However, for us, where it's important is being able to have growth regardless of market conditions and sentiment of where the sector is. So currently, not just now, since when July, I mean, okay, not the market started to turn July time on the treasury side, and also, you know, even Bitcoin as well started to find its resistance. But particularly the last 3 months, it's been quite painful in the treasury space for companies holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet. But for us, where we were very keen when we started this process is, if we're going to do this, let's do it differently. You're never going to get to strategies level. Sure. Certainly not having the traditional flywheel, which Michael Saylor started, you know, in the 2020, 21. Those days are gone. One, he was buying Bitcoin at $10,000 at the beginning. Yeah. Two, there was no competition. It was new. You were getting, you know, MNAVs of 4, 5 and 6, 7. And those days, well, they're gone for now anyway. Maybe if Bitcoin hits 150, 175, you're going to see the renewed buying coming in, where MNAVs start to get expanded to 3, 4, 5 again, I hope, for a lot of the companies. So I like to see everyone do well. But I think now with a lot of the companies who, let's be honest, most of them don't make any money really on their core business, and their balance sheet is pretty static. You know, that, you know, it's pretty, you know, it's just there as a core holding on their balance sheet. So what happens when you have market conditions like this and you can't raise capital using ATMs, using, you know, the capital markets, getting convertible debt? You're kind of staying there and not raising capital anymore. So for us, we wanted to create, I wouldn't say the flywheel, but maybe our own structure and our own flywheel, where regardless of market conditions, we're still able to generate some yield. But we're small at the moment, so the actual incremental growth is not high, but the actual percentage growth on our balance sheet is. So we started allocating our Bitcoin to our yield strategies in December, beginning of December. Last month, that made 1.29% net after fees. And this month is a lot better as well. So we're targeting anywhere between 10 to 15% a year growth on our balance sheet, just from our just by reallocating our Bitcoin into our yield strategies, which will hopefully put us in a position where we can start offering our own structured products, not the preferred, because I think to get to that level, you have to have at least 10 to 15,000 coins and have incredibly liquid share prices to be able to have an ATM on your preferred line. But we're able to do something similar, but getting a real yield, which we can offer investors. And that's the kind of product we're working on at the moment. I can't say too much, obviously, because we're listed, but
yeah, we're just going to ask if you could elaborate, but
yield's first topic.
No, I can't, but we are looking at things where investors, you know, we're in a position with getting a yield and a return. We can offer investors something. We currently are just buying our shares now, you know, without the dilution of a capital raise, which we haven't done yet. You know, our Bitcoin is going up for the same number of shares in circulation. So the sats per share, if you want to call it that, is increasing organically without the need of capital raise. And that's what we're aiming to do. So yeah, I think, so this month's yield, again, we haven't put it public yet, but it's very good. I mean, it beat last month's by quite a bit. Quite happy with that.
So just on the topic of education, explain the yield piece to us, right? You buy real estate, people rent the real estate, that's a yield there on that asset. You know, you get a dividend if you invest in corporate stock, and that's a yield on like investing in that. And, you know, for Bitcoin, there's no native yield where you're holding Bitcoin and it's getting like a steady income stream. We've seen, you know, certainly like in our business, we've seen like Celsius and FTX and these different ways that people have these crazy yields that attracted a lot of people, but then they were burned by them. Without having to divulge anything, you know, that's private, that you guys are doing, how do you see the evolution of Bitcoin yield now? Because we know that there's like people that are trading options on Deribit, selling covered call strategies or put spread strategies, and that's a way to get yield to the markets. You obviously see what Saylor's doing, with preferred equity as a way to raise capital, and he's focused more on like, Bitcoin yield and Bitcoin per share. What is Roy's take on this evolution of where Bitcoin yield is right now?
Okay, so put it bluntly, I think having the best asset in the world that just sits there and doesn't earn you any money is nuts for me. And it's the same with having gold. Gold doesn't get you a yield. So people buy gold for a safety asset more, not necessarily for something to make money on. Or at the moment, maybe they are. It's slightly different because you're getting the appreciation and the actual asset class. But you can't sit there with the best asset in the world and not have it working for you. For example, if you had £100,000, are you going to put it in your current account doing nothing? No, you're going to get it into a savings account, or you're going to buy property with it to give you a return. Why is Bitcoin any different? How can you have 1,000 Bitcoin just sitting there making no return? So that's put it bluntly, just seems crazy to me and to us as a company. So I think it's essential that companies do use their balance sheet to generate some kind of return for investors. Don't just use investors as the yield with capital raises. Give something back to the investors and the shareholders, and that's what we want to do. That's what we're doing. And you're right. From the last few months, I've seen more and more conversations with other companies, listening to their interviews and their podcasts and panels and speaking to people in the industry. The topic of yield is definitely increasing. And I think a lot of these companies are starting to realize they have to do something else rather than, and each company does their own thing and they've done great. And, they'll find their own way to grow their balance sheet, be it through the core business, be it through more capital raising and dilution for shareholders. That's fine, but I think more and more have come to the realization they have to be getting something in return, returning something to their shareholders and getting a yield on their balance sheet. And that's what we're doing. But it's interesting you brought up the option strategies and, FTX back in the, we don't do anything like that. There's no trading. We don't trade. We don't invest in the markets we do very open to what we do. So our parent company, we just allocate our Bitcoin to our parent company, sister company, Falcon Investment Management. They have their own capital allocation fund. This is one of the things we use at the moment to get the yield, where we have different managers who come on the platform with their strategies after they're carefully vetted, and the strategies are low risk, very liquid. We go through a very long, arduous process with our risk teams, and if everything is good, then they come on the platform and we can allocate them capital to grow their fund and trade on a bigger capital base to make more overall returns for themselves. But the managers operate on a first loss basis. So their capital, so if they come with $1 million and we give them 2 million, the first $1 million that they lose is their capital, not ours. Mm-hmm. And they also have to pay us for the cost of capital, for all the other services that come with, a percentage every year for the capital that we allocate. So the fund is always making money. This fund has been going for 5 years now, and it's made money every single month. It's never lost money. And last year it returned around 16% after fees. Wow. So, and this year started quite well as well. So, for us, there's I don't like the term no risk, zero risk, because nothing is zero risk, but it's as close to having no risk as you can possibly get. So where that's helpful, as I said, we can put the Bitcoin in there, but we can also we can take lines of credit in fiat or in Bitcoin and get a yield on that, pay the coupon and keep the difference. We're able to, manage other people's Bitcoin. We've been approached by, different people to see if that's something we're interested in. We haven't moved on that yet, but that's another line we can do to raise the revenues of the business. And for us, it's very important to be valued on a profit basis on the business rather than just NAV. So we've just last week put the first stages of our analytics page on our website live. And we didn't put any of the NAV or MNAV on there because when you're a business that's able to get a yield and make a profit, I don't believe NAV and MNAV is the best valuation to just be measured on. So that's something I've been very vocal about in the markets. And I can give you an example on a 10 million times bigger scale. Tesla, for example, hold 11,000 Bitcoin, I think, on their balance sheet. They've got a balance sheet of 41 billion, but they're not valued at 41 billion on their market cap because they're not seen as why are they valued on their NAV? They're valued on the profits they make. So for us, because we'll be able to get the returns through our Bitcoin, that's how we want to be valued. And I think that's going to feed through, and it's going to take time for the market to understand that, but they're slowly starting to from speaking to investors. So yeah, I mean, if you see that, we've haven't put any of the NAV stuff on there, and it's more about yield, organic, and how we're able to add to the balance sheet without dilution on shareholders.
So are you essentially using the cash flow from the advisory fees to just buy more Bitcoin?
No, so the cash flow for the advisory fees, the cash on the advisory side is more just to help the business self-sustain, which means every time we have more Bitcoin, either through capital raises or through our yield strategies, we don't need to use that to keep the business going, to keep the lights on, to pay salaries, to pay the exchange fees, what have you. That's going to be self-sustaining, hopefully by next quarter. But the real money will come from the yield we make on our Bitcoin. So I'd like to think, I'm not going to, aiming for, there's no guarantees, especially where the market is. We'll have several hundred Bitcoin on the balance sheet, making at least 10 to 12% return for us, which translates into fiat, comes into around 7-8 million in profit. Growth fintech companies get valued on 20-30 times their EBITDA. That would put us on a 200-300 million valuation just on that, on having 300-400 Bitcoin. So that's how I see our business being valued, not necessarily on our NAV.
So one thing we've really started this year talking about is sobering up, right? You talked about like these 9-10x MNAVs, and sometimes there's growth potential there, but other times the market's getting really frothy. And if I'm like kind of rehashing this for our audience, one of the business models that's been around for a long time is like an insurance company. So the best money manager that we've seen past 50 years, Warren Buffett, he decided, very smart guy, he decided as a follower of Benjamin Graham, I want to go start or acquire Berkshire Hathaway and turn this into this conglomerate that is essentially an insurance company, and he's getting fed these premiums every year for putting his money to work. So you have these, he's taking in premiums and getting a very safe conservative yield, but he just amasses this massive balance sheet that he's able to do a lot of things with. He buys and sells companies. He buys them at low valuations and spots the value and rides that up to outperform the market. So for you guys, looking at it in that lens of not chasing the flashiest crazy leverage or pushing stuff on the market, you guys are taking that capital and you firmly believe Bitcoin will never be an institutional asset widely adopted if we're not going to put it to work, if it's just going to be capital sitting very stagnant. I
don't believe it will never be a big institutional asset. That I think it will anyway, but I just don't believe that it can. Anyone that can hold it should just not try and get something, make a return and make it work for you. That's what I mean. Same with your dollar. You wouldn't just sit it in a bank and just have it doing nothing. It's nonsensical. You have to put it to work, and that's how I see the growth. But it's a good analogy which you made with Berkshire Hathaway. I'd love to be that size one day, but it is, and it's about grinding it out, getting your assets to work with you, and it just gives you optionality. So this will give us optionality. There'll be times when the markets are, on fire and going into the capital markets to raise capital from investors will be the better option. There'll be times like this where actually realize now's not the time, because people just don't want to know, because it's such a sentiment driven thing. So let's make sure we have this feeding in at the same time, regardless of the market conditions. So we're always able to increase our balance sheet every single month without fail, to make sure our shareholders see some growth every single month, whatever the market conditions. And we've seen that December, and you'll see it in January as well.
Yeah. My first thoughts on this is like, I feel like I get, sometimes I'll post about Stretch or one of the financial instruments that Sailors created, and I'll get a lot of pushback from Bitcoin maxis. And I've noticed there's such a divide in this community when it comes to financialization. And like you said, putting your Bitcoin to work. How do you explain, or I don't know, orange pill the already orange pilled, the ones that are too deep in it and don't agree with any of this financialization on top of Bitcoin?
You're right. We have had that blowback when we're speaking to some investors who are Bitcoin maxis, either retail or some funds, and they're like, it's not the traditional flywheel model. So, the treasury model, which Sailor's been doing, but even Sailor doesn't do that model anymore. Necessarily, he's moved away. He's realized that model was great, I think, when it was less saturated, had a less efficient market, not having hundreds of treasury companies trying to do the same thing. When MNAVs were, April, May, June last year, 30, 40, some of the companies in the UK were trading on MNAVs off. It was incredible. So you're right. We have had blowback, and it's been tricky, and it still is. To change the thinking to realize that Bitcoin can be a financial asset that gives you a return. It should just be held as a static store of value. Why not use it? Why not make it something that's going to actually it's not just making more money, it just gives you the optionality of growth, of changing when things don't work.
I see a lot of comments, and people will leave comments. Even just this morning, I was in the comments of I saw a post that said like, don't I forgot what it was, but it like, don't advertise Bitcoin backed loans. And I'm in there in the comments like, I just don't understand this like strictly HODL mentality. I think if you got in early and you can do that, and you can now live off of your Bitcoin, and your life has gotten significantly cheaper, then you should do that. But for me, I'm with you on that. I think that if you're long-term bullish, accessing that liquidity is that like, that makes perfect sense to me. And I don't think that financialization and like Bitcoin backed loans and that kind of thing are a detriment to the network or to the Bitcoin space. And I think that a lot of people have been just protesting against all of these products, and like your product with the yield. How do you explain that to, say, a Bitcoin maxi who's just stuck on this idea? Because for me, it's like, young people are struggling, and I think that these products can really help us and help us get out of this fiscal situation.
I guess what we try to say is, it's not taking away from the altruistic Bitcoin, decentralized, anti-establishment from what the reason it was established back in 2009, 10. It's that's still the premise of holding Bitcoin, and all the values are still there. That's still true to it. But as things mature, as things grow, as things develop, it's natural that if you have an asset that's it's traced trillions, Bitcoin's a multi-trillion asset, of course it's going to be financialized. It has to be. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. If anything, that's going to aid the growth. This is what's going to take it to $1 million a coin. This is this adoption that's going to take Bitcoin higher, in my opinion, over the next 5-6 years. This adoption of financialization of an asset.
I think it really takes a lot of like learning too, right? And I think you guys have a lot of experience. You've been managing money, you said, for 15 years, and not everybody should employ strategies if they don't have the risk management and the vetting of those strategies. Like, you're putting your balance sheet to work, but it's getting into, you mentioned a first loss situation where the money manager is going to be penalized and they're incentivized not to lose their money first by doing a very large risky bet. But not every small, let's say, like US-based treasury companies should do that, because they need to have the relationships, they need to have the experience to be able to do that.
And I think for the other treasury companies, I think they are looking at trying to find ways to get a return on their balance sheet. It's hard because you don't want to be allocating your Bitcoin necessarily to third parties either, if you're a treasury company, because your whole reason for being is your Bitcoin, and you're giving it to someone else. But I mean, we don't. Ours is all kept from our parent company, so it's very safe. And so there is that challenge, but we don't do anything to do with DeFi or staking. It's all very low risk, carefully managed, steady return every month. Even the fund where we allocate our Bitcoin to, it's not up 10%, down 5%. It's 1%, 1.5% a month, every single month. And for us, that's exactly what you want as a safe returning asset for shareholders and for us to grow our balance sheet. Safe and steady.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask too. All right. We were talking about at the very beginning, you stole, I think, one of our later topics is finding the bottom. So you mentioned around 72, 73. This is, not financial advice. No one should walk away from this. We always like to have a little bit of like alpha in the middle of the show. Listeners like to take away just from the mindset perspective. How much lower do you think we go right now? Like, what's your sentiment?
Halston, I'll let you take this first.
I honestly, I could see us getting into the 60s. I don't think any lower than that. I would say maybe 68.
Yeah.
68K.
I mean, that's the ultimate level, 65, 64, 65. Yeah. If you're going to look at chart levels, and that was actually what I mainly did when I was running my niche charts and level trading. But I would say that they would be my if it broke the 72, 73 level, because it hovered around there for 6-7 months, in 2024, I believe it was, top of my head, I can't remember. Between 72 to those levels, it had a range, and I think if it's the top of that range was around 74,000, and I think that's where you're going to start to see a little support come in, and it's going to be such a big level to go through. And if it does, then the next one is probably in the mid 60s, 64, 60. Again, I could be, maybe I'm just biased. I see Bitcoin hitting 200,000 this year. I really do. I just think there's so much uncertainty that's hit it, and you needed a washout of the system. And having all the ETF trading, it's just become such a huge trading beast. Yeah. It's not just about investing anymore. But another thing which people just don't talk about is the treasury companies buying up Bitcoin. Obviously, the majority strategy, but that ratio of them holding, I think they're less than 50% now. I think they're going to get to 1 million Bitcoin this year on their balance sheet quite easily at some point. And that's almost 5% of the total supply. You're never going to mine all the Bitcoin, and if you do, it's going to take a good 20 years to get the last few. But so
from the chat, real quick,
the treasury companies don't sell their Bitcoin. Well, they shouldn't do, or they're not. They shouldn't be in the business. And the more they accumulate, the more Stride, Metaplanet, smaller ones like us, all these companies accumulate Bitcoin. The supply shock's going to hit at some point.
That's what we hope. All right, so Roy, Nima from the chat, some are calling 200 weighted moving average as the bottom. That's around 58K, but no one knows. Bitcoin's going to do its own thing like it always has. 58K would be painful. Our friends over at Predicts, so this is prediction markets that blown up. They're a fun way, I think, to spark conversation, even if you're not trading on them actively. But this is the first one built on Bitcoin. So you're connecting your Bitcoin wallet. You can use like Nostr Wallet Connect, and you're actually trading in Sats, which we love, like using the medium of exchange use case for Bitcoin. And yeah, it seems right now people are a little bit bearish. Bitcoin below 70K in 2026. Maybe it's a quick candle. I need to look at is the qualification, for this. Okay, the 1 minute candle low is under 70.
Bearish is not bad. Bearish is not a bad thing to have if you want it to go up. But I'm a contrarian whenever I ran money, so I think when everyone's too bullish, like every time I hit 125,000. Everyone's going to go ballistic, and you go on X and everyone's going crazy. I think the bearishness is what's going to make this turn, I believe.
Yeah, I'm with that.
I mean, if I was going to trade it and if I was, again, not financial advice, but if I'm going to sell, I'd probably look at selling puts in the low 70s, potentially, as a trade. I'd probably sell puts there.
Puts in the low 70s. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I think people have realized or don't realize. It's not financial advice, but is on the way up. A lot of people are making a ton of money on selling covered call strategies. You had the rise of Misty, IMST, which is Bitwise's income fund based on selling covered calls on MicroStrategy or Strategy now. And on the way down, there's a similar way you can make money. And it's the way that Metaplanet, so Simon and Dylan LeClaire over at Metaplanet, they're allowed to, which you're not allowed to in the US, to be able to sell these like put strategies and make income. And then if your put, gets called away or gets called and you have to go buy Bitcoin, you're buying your own shares at a lower price, which is cool. So I think this is a piece of education that a lot of people aren't familiar with, and you really shouldn't. You don't grow up when you're 8 years old learning about these different, derivatives trading strategies. But we're trying to educate, which brings me back to Halston. Halston, tell us a little bit about your view and how you're approaching education with some of these strategy products, because I know that's been for you with Stretch, with helping people new to the space learning. Okay, what is this? What's a preferred equity? What is this derivative of Bitcoin? How do I wrap my head around it?
Yeah, I would say usually when it comes to education in the Bitcoin space, it's a little bit easier, but sometimes, like I said earlier, there is a lot of pushback and friction when it comes to me advertising Stretch or talking about strategies products. So that's a bit more challenging, I would say, than trying to educate, say, someone I went to college with who was also a finance or business econ major. I think the main thing for me is that I want to be clear that no ETF is ever going to, do the job of Bitcoin itself in purchasing spot and holding in self-custody. I'm a huge proponent of that. Yeah. I think that, a lot of times we are seeing artificially suppressed demand because people are getting confused. There's this misunderstanding that because they have the ETF, they hold Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I think, when it comes to education, try to take it one day at a time and not get into kerfuffles with people on X, especially the Bitcoin maxis. I would say I'm a Bitcoin maxi, but I'm also a 23-year-old girl who has student loans and still has bills to pay. And so I'm trying to educate myself while also educating other Bitcoiners and understanding, listen, to say that, you shouldn't be participating in derivatives trading or investing in products like Stretch, that's a bit out of touch. Because even this morning, I had this guy say you shouldn't be doing that for short-term fiat gains. And it's well, listen, if you've been holding Bitcoin for 10 years, good for you. But that's not me. I got into it 2-3 years ago. And so, I think that these products are never going to be a replacement for spot. But I do think that they have their use cases, and I am all for them, as long as nothing is nefarious and with malintent.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just don't see how anyone can judge for wanting to, what Stretch now, 11.25. He upped it yesterday.
11.25.
Yeah, another quarter of, I remember reading. where you get 11 point, you're not going to get that in a property. You're not going to get that in a bank. You're not going to get that owning gold unless it's going up. Yeah, it can go down as well. Not many stocks are paying you a dividend of 11.25. You know? And I think as much as, you know, people will like to criticize it and the whole thing, I think it's an amazing product.
Actually. Absolutely. Yeah. Even just for that short-term cash, like it's so much better than just leaving your 6-month expenses in your JP Morgan or Wells Fargo that's not providing any kind of yield. It's just sitting there getting devalued. So I just don't understand the mentality.
And that's what we want to do for, you know, we're looking at creating products like that. Again, I can't say too much, but where we can offer a guaranteed yield for investors, you know, at least 7-8% here, which, well, 6 to 7%, where they're going to be able to, you know, I can put my money there for a year, get a yield, because I'm not going to get that in a government bond anymore. I'm not going to get that just holding my own Bitcoin. I'm not going to get that in a property. So I think it's important. People want to make money. It's tough times at the moment. It's you need to get a return on your capital.
Yeah. I think you also have people that are like non-objective, or people that are objective, let's say the rise of AI agents. If you go direct someone to build a capital base and to get a return, if you want them to allocate to Bitcoin, and it's someone, you know, it's you're writing a code completely objectively, they don't have an emotional feeling or attachment. They're going to go find strategies that generate yield, and they're going to go find strategies that are proven to have some type of return, and they're not going to be swayed by just different sentiment on Twitter, unless like that's what they're directed to do, which wouldn't make sense. But if their core directive is to make money, they're going to have to go allocate to someone that's making yield. So I think it's good to have those discussions in public. It goes back to that Danny Knowles and Michael Saylor interview, which I'd love either of your opinion on real quick. Saylor, it seemed like he was really responding in a reactionary way, not just to Danny, but really to the broader community of why are you spending so much time and energy, you know, criticizing Bitcoin treasury companies when they are a good marginal buyer of Bitcoin, instead of finding better ways and putting your energy towards building business models that improve the system and buy Bitcoin as well. Like it feels like people are keyboard warriors, you know, commenting on the people in the arena, on the field, but aren't offering a better solution for hyper-organization.
Yeah, I think the word treasury company or DAT has become a dirty word at the moment. Just when 6-7 months ago it was the darling of the market. So he's right. Yeah, I think it's very easy to criticize these companies, but ultimately they are buying Bitcoin. They are the ultimate Bitcoin maxis. They're buying Bitcoin and they're holding it. And what more? And they're doing everything they can to support the system.
Exactly.
And they'll be the winners at the end of it. Guarantee they'll be the winners at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, you know, buying treasury companies for different reasons, but I would also always recommend holding Bitcoin in cold storage as well.
For sure.
First thing you should do, and especially like I think one of you guys early in the show, Venezuela, and then we also had Iran. You know, everyone needs to have their sovereignty. Roy, I know it's top of the hour. Halston, I know that you have to jump as well. It's been amazing, and so Roy, we'd love to have you back soon. We'll talk about it.
Thank you very much.
Congrats again on the launch in the US, Halston.
Thanks very much.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks for joining, Roy. Bye.
Bye.
We got Lev from Jersey City Bitcoin joining us. Lev is one of our absolute boys. I'm excited to have you on. I was like, we need to get Lev on the show.
How you doing, Jody? Good to be here.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's times like these I start to remember 2022 as the price was going down. It turned out to be the best time to stack. So that's what I just like to remind everybody of right now. I would have much less Bitcoin now if the drop in 22 didn't happen. So it's hard to stomach at the moment, but just always got to keep that in mind, I think.
Yeah. 22. I mean, that like November stretch was, I think, huge for myself, being able to continue stacking, and then just, making sure you're filling that first bucket of self-custody Bitcoin first, then exploring everything else. I know we just got off talking about treasury companies, and we want to support, companies buying Bitcoin if they're doing it the right way, educate on the risks out there, make sure you're finding good investments. If you are investing in Bitcoin outside of pure spot Bitcoin self-custody, but you got to talk about it. You can't just shut down these ideas, because that's going to move people into non-Bitcoin investments.
And I don't think it's going to get as bad as 22, but I'm not a big price guy. I'm more in lines of, grab your share of the 21 million forever. And as more people figure it out, the price will take care of itself.
Yeah. So this past weekend, what were your feelings? Like, what's been your thoughts on just, seeing the price dump? Some of it, I think, was like consideration around Warsh. I think from the conspiracy side, it was the Bilderberg committee that he was, the Warsh was involved in, and Bitcoiners are looking at, this is a pure establishment guy. We can't have this. This is, World Economic Forum 2.0 is an insiders coming in. But it is someone that Trump nominated. So you think that, that Trump is very driven by, he looks at the stock market every day. He considers that a barometer. He looks at the Bitcoin price now, we think, maybe not every day, but at least once a week, and considers that a barometer of success.
Yeah, I think it's clear that he obviously wants the stock market up. He says that he wants Bitcoin and unfortunately crypto up, but it hasn't taken place yet. I have to say that he really lost a lot of trust with Trump coin. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was really disheartening when that came out. So he still has a lot to prove as far as Bitcoiners go. I mean, you can go back to when he, during the Bitcoin conference, and, morale was very high. We're going to get our Bitcoin guy in, and look at us now. I mean, one place that many people may know me from is when I happened to be at PubKey, as we were almost at 100K in November 2024. We were at like 98, and now look at us now. But if you're a real Bitcoiner, you know that it's just a race of accumulation. Most people haven't even reached the starting line yet. So we just have to focus on education and spreading the word, as hard as it may be, even though when you think about it, most of us really orange pilled ourselves, but we can't help it. Once you find it, you have to, let the people that you like and love try to learn about it.
Yeah. So speaking of educating, you got a stack of books behind you. I know we've been talking about this just in Telegram. We were like, let's get you talking about some books. I saw a picture you presented, was it to Jersey City Bitcoin, the local Bitcoin meetup, on books specifically. Take us through the presentation. Like, you don't have to, I'm not going to ask for a PowerPoint, but like, you already have it memorized.
This is my favorite thing to talk about. I'd love to. So Jersey City Bitcoin started as a meetup group a couple years ago, once a month. But you socialize, you talk about Bitcoin, but a lot of, especially new people, would say, hey, I came here, I thought I was going to learn about Bitcoin. And we're like, yeah, well, what do you want to know? But we made a second monthly event that's more structured as an actual seminar, where we get a couple of our experts, not myself, I'm still learning always, but I'm class of 2020, so I've been around for a while, but not as long as many people. So we decided to make a second event for strictly educational workshops. We went through the cryptographic principles. We discussed custody, of course, very important, and feeling how I could add. I had a library of Bitcoin books, so I brought a whole stack in. This is only half of them because I lent a lot of them out at that time. So my favorite ones.
People run with it, right?
Yeah. I presented my favorite ones and gave a little brief synopsis about some of them, and several members came home, with a Bitcoin book, and we'll see this Thursday how many people actually completed them. I think 1 month is enough to read one Bitcoin book. And even better, I reached out to the Consensus Network, who's the top Bitcoin publisher. They gave us a nice discount. I got 8 new ones that I'm going to present at our next event. So it's a good educational opportunity for everybody to go home with something and, exchange. And, of course, we want to support everybody buying their own, but within this community, it's not going to hurt the book publishers that much. So it's really like a Bitcoin library for the group. And it's been a success so far.
That's huge. And there's little, like, you see them in the neighborhoods, the little libraries, that people build. Those are great. I think people are switching away from so much screen time to wanting something tangible to read. And
it gets you off the phone to actually turn the actual pages and read a real book, and you can really digest it. Of course, I watch all the podcasts. I do spaces. I watch the documentaries, but there's really no substitute for a good Bitcoin book.
Yeah. The biggest thing, and this takes me like a long time to learn, is distilled information that's also evergreen or timeless in that way, where someone writing a book is you're having to go out and publish it and market it, and you're putting your name on it, and this might be your only like source of income, or I mean, if you're a first time publisher, that's putting a lot together. But it's not Twitter feed where you're incentivized by the algorithm to do as much as possible. There's not AI slop or pleb slop coming out. A lot of these authors, especially the early ones, are putting a lot of their careers and their expertise into something. So the product that you're getting, the information you're putting in your mind, isn't just junk food. And I think I've had the bad thing of always reading articles and fleeting, tweets and stuff that the algorithm wants me to read, Zuckerberg wants me to read. But I honestly, it took me a long time to realize, I need to feed myself more evergreen stuff, long-term knowledge.
That's a good word, because they don't go out of date. I mean, some of my favorites, like 21 Lessons by Dergigi, The Seventh Property by Eric Yates. You could read that now, and it's all still relevant. Proof of Money by Terrence Michael, one of my favorite Bitcoiners. They don't get outdated, because Bitcoin, for the most part, as you know, the fundamentals don't change.
Yeah. Good alternative I've been doing is going for a run and then using Audible and then just like doing an audiobook.
Absolutely. I've listened to so much Guy Swan. I mean, that guy, he's been influential for sure. Speaking of which, one piece that I recommend to everybody is Bitcoin is Digital Scarcity, also by Dergigi. He goes through the in-game economies of like things like World of Warcraft or Second Life, and in the last half hour shows you why Bitcoin is digital money, but it's not virtual money, because it can't be printed, farmed, or served. And that's one of the best lessons. There you go. Listen to that, read it, or listen to that, and you will come out of it a better Bitcoiner, really.
All right. For the squad, we're going to put it in the chat right now.
Very nice.
Let's give people links, make it easy for them.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. Just the other day, I was in a focus group. I guess you'd call it a focus group with Corey Clipston from Swan.
Yeah.
He invited just, there was about 8 people to talk about how being in Bitcoin has changed the way they look at money, or how they view money. And it was very interesting. For me, as a full-blown Bitcoiner, I on the one hand, yes, it does help you save, because it how much your Bitcoin is going to be worth in the future, and it'll only appreciate as the denominator stays constant at 21 million. But on the other hand, I also like to spend sats. I saw you had Bird Flip on just yesterday. This is one of his hats. I buy a lot of.
Pull it up for the camera. Let's go for the big screen.
Yeah, it's actually upside down and backwards, but it's reversed here. Maybe it's very confusing, but it's supposed to be like kind of incognito, but not quite. But he has great stuff. I like Without Rulers is a great Bitcoin merch guy. But you can't go wrong, because what I found is the standards are very high amongst Bitcoiners. You know that you're going to get a quality product. And I don't sell anything. I'm a consumer. I'm telling you from experience that everything I've really gotten Bitcoin related has always been high quality. And I think that's something to be said about Bitcoiners.
Yeah. Well, so link for the hat. What's
it's Bird Flip. Bird Flip on X. He works with the Bitcoin Way, and he's one of my favorite Bitcoiners out there, as is his guy Tony, who's also a lot like Terrence. They you don't get more hardcore Bitcoiners than those guys. So
yeah.
Yeah.
He was on 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah. Don't measure it in fiat. It's your share of the 21 million forever. It's natural. We have to live. We have to pay bills. But after, there we go. Yeah. I got one of those hoodies as well. So he's got great stuff. But like I said, there's a lot of great stuff out there. One of the latest things, speaking of quality, is the Bitcoin Art magazine. It's just gorgeous. It's just like museum quality. All the artwork of various mediums that Bitcoiners are putting out, and it's stunning. Really, you can't go wrong if you're into Bitcoin. Get some Bitcoin stuff. And like I said, I'm not selling anything. I'm just a fan. Yeah, there we go.
But people need to know what's out there, right? Like, I think
I'm not affiliated with any of this. I'm just I could give good recommendations. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Yeah. So the Bitcoin Art magazine, one of the people in it put this great video out, Anik Malcolm, about he wanted to show you what 21 million of something looked like. So he made a cube and then discovered, you have to watch it, discovered some mathematical, I don't want to say peculiarities, but things that are seem to be more than just a coincidence on how symmetrical it turned out. So that's really cool. And you got paintings, you have sculptures that are all in high quality photos in that book.
Bitcoin Art magazine. We're gonna drop this in the thread below, so anyone following, you guys have the right links for it.
Yeah. Hey, while we're going, I have one other great recommendation, something I recently discovered, and that's Bitcoin Video Magazine by this guy, Tim Tation. And it's original format because it's 1 hour of it's not like just news, or it's not just entertainment, just segments. You can just sit back and get 1 hour of continuous Bitcoin content. And the second issue is coming out soon. So I'm a big fan of that as well.
Bitcoin Video Magazine.
Yeah. Either on X or YouTube. I know yay, there we go. That's the one. Oh, you're fast with this. You're a professional or something.
I feel like you're loudly typing, but then we're like, all right, we're getting into an end. It's always going to be tangible too. I'm like, all right, Lev's dropping some heat in here. Let's not just expect to remember exactly what
more than happy to. More than happy to. Interesting about Tim. He's how we came up with the poll this morning. He used to operate Bitcoin ATMs, and he gave me a lot of insight to the people that use them, why they use them, because I've definitely seen more around. And when I tested one out, at first I was excited. I was like, wow, did the price just jump a minute ago? But it turns out that it just had a very high spread. So I'm like, who is using these? And that's what I wanted to dive into with him. And many people are using it to live off the grid. You take cash, you deposit cash into the Bitcoin ATM, and for them, the spread is worth it. Other people, are getting it to easily send remittances. I don't know how Western Union is still in business, to be honest, because as we know, Bitcoin is the best way to send money around the world. Just on Bitcoin News this morning, they showed that I don't know, $500 million was just sent over Bitcoin for a fee of 500 sats. You can't beat that. Yeah. Final settlement in 10 minutes.
Yeah, unreal.
Settlement in 6 blocks, I know, but after a couple blocks, I've never had anything get reversed. Maybe in the early days that happened, but yeah, here we go. So yeah, so living off the grid, number one. Then we got, sorry to say, ransomware payments is a real thing that sometimes you'll have, the CFO or a treasurer of a company not want to, they want to retain anonymity from within their own company. So maybe they're a little embarrassed, and they want to take care of this. So they, I don't know, put on sunglasses and a hat and go to a Bitcoin ATM and get some Bitcoin and send it and get all their encrypted files back. So that's unfortunately a real thing.
Yeah. So we saw this week, I mean, with the Epstein list, I'm sure some Bitcoin exchanged hands, as part of that whole, I mean, there's a lot of people on that list. Right?
Yeah, you couldn't get away from that in the news the last week or so. Just release the whole thing already. Just get it all out. Yeah. How many millions of pages, and we can talk about it. Let's see who's clean and who is not, whose denials really look silly now. That sort of thing's not as interesting to me as regular Bitcoiner stuff, but the Epstein link to, it was some MIT crypto thing, and then possibly some Bitcoin developers. I don't know. That's not my expertise, but it partly from being in Bitcoin, you will get a lot of politics, and you will when actually linked to Bitcoin for sure. So I understand that.
Yeah, I think when you're thinking about ransom payments and who's going to be paying them, and who is Bitcoin is very transparent. Someone could spin up, with an ATM, the ability to put in cash or withdraw cash, in the same thing, and get out and have some privacy there. I know there's a few protocols we've spoken on kind of lightly that are working on Bitcoin privacy specifically. For you, as you're thinking about, before we get off the topic of books, as you're thinking about what are the people that are coming back and having read the whole book? What do you typically see as, a random sample of people that borrow a book from you or in the meetup that are actually going and finishing it? And it surprises you. That, it seems like people finish that because it's digestible or shorter, or it spoke to them.
Good question. I think it's similar to what happens, with yourself, what happened to me. Each one kind of unlocks a mystery that previously you were unclear about with Bitcoin. If you go back to think of what you thought about Bitcoin before you started to learn about it, it's hard to even remember what you thought about it because you just dismissed it. You knew it had something to do with the internet and it was supposed to be money, but before you learn about it, naturally, you're not going to believe it. It's just something, it's completely it's just a number on the screen, right? Just the price. And then when you learn about it, you find out that the number on the screen is not Bitcoin. Everything you know about the price happens off of Bitcoin, because the only way to get it is to buy it from someone who already has it. So then the market is created. And that's also the main, point I make. If people talk about intrinsic value, why does it have any value at all? I say, well, it started at zero for a reason. Then we live in a society, people decided they could start to trade it and buy it and sell it. And so it started from a penny, and here we are today. So if you just see the number on the screen that they don't understand, or if you see a headline on, big purchase, $200 million go into Bitcoin, there's no money actually going into Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the network, is just sats being sent from one address to another, right? The buying, the selling happens off of Bitcoin. So you buy it on exchange, that exchange then says, okay, you gave me the dollars, now in your account you have this much Bitcoin. But at that point, when it's on the exchange, no Bitcoin has moved until you send it to your own address, your own hardware wallet address. Then hopefully they better send you the Bitcoin, but the dollar transaction already happened, right? So that's part of the learning curve. Once you actually, make a transaction, check the mempool, see, where it's at and how many confirmations did I get. And then you check an old transaction, you see you have thousands of confirmations, and you realize, wow, this same transaction is being, reconfirmed every 10 minutes and will forever, basically. So that just gets more interesting. But it's the way I like to describe the price, because when we just look at the price all day, you forget the actual Bitcoin network is just running. Sats are going from one address to another. Miners are building blocks, finding blocks, confirming transactions, processing transactions, and we're here running nodes, doing our part, watching our own coins. And
do you run any miners or nodes yourself?
What's that?
Do you run any miners or nodes yourself?
I run a node, yes. I'm not the most technical guy, so I went out and got a start mine. It's really like a plug and play. At the time, it took like a day and a half to download the entire blockchain, and at that moment, it's a great feeling. Wow, I have every Bitcoin transaction since the beginning of time, which is 2009, of course. So I would recommend everybody to run a node if you have at least, I don't know, 0.1 Bitcoin. If you're 0.1 Bitcoin, I think you should be running a node. And learn how to connect your wallet, and then you're really part of the global network, part of the game. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that comes later. If you've only been into it for a year or two, I'll be honest, I didn't start running one until 2024, and I first bought my Bitcoin in 2020. So those early years, you read those books, watch the podcast, listen to Guy Swan, to do all those things. And then, but the technical hurdle just to run a node is not, it's not hard. It's really not. I think,
and that's the thing now is anything technical. It's just, you just go to Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or any of these LLMs and say, hey, I'm a complete noob, but I'm very interested in running a Bitcoin node. And you paste in Start9's URL if you want to, if that's like your chosen path, and it's going to explain it to you. And it's like that access to information that's like custom, that's addressing your questions. You do follow-up questions. You send screenshots. I sent a screenshot of my water heater 3 days ago, and the funny is the water heater was cold. This is completely off topic from Bitcoin. Water heater is cold, and we were looking. I was like, what was the problem? I sent it to Gemini, and I was like, I think this knob is totally like all the way off, but no one changed it. And then I realized we let a 3-year-old scooter around our garage, and he, super curious, went over and must have turned it all the way to 0 and just turned on the water heater.
Easy fix.
Yeah, easy fix. I love that part, but then I was like, he had a cold bath about an hour before that, so I was like, you kind of deserve that, little kid. Like, you turned off the water heater. Like, this is what happened.
I'm glad you brought the AI aspect up, because not only for running a node, any question about Bitcoin whatsoever, and not just the technical questions. It can be conceptually, but it's obviously technically as well, but AI that really understands Bitcoin. They do. I asked a fun question because before I said it, I wanted to make sure that it was factually correct. I said, is it a true statement that Bitcoin uses the internet but not the World Wide Web? And they kind of glazed me a little bit. They said, oh, well, that's a provocative statement. And that is true because Bitcoin uses TCP/IP to communicate, but not websites. Each node is just connected to other nodes, and Bitcoin doesn't live on a homepage, which is, I think, someone would have to be a little more interested into Bitcoin to find that interesting. It's not really an orange pilling tool, but I thought it was interesting because before you get into Bitcoin, if you hear that it's internet money, you may okay, let's go to the website. Where is it? But it's not on a website. It doesn't really use HTTPS. It's on each individual computer that's running the software. So
yeah,
I was pretty pleased that AI complimented me. I think they were just kind of maybe they were patronizing me a little bit, but they thought it was a good question.
They get snarkier and snarkier these days. I want to bring this up because now actually we can tie water heaters to Bitcoin, and this is at CES this year. Superheat at CES 2026. The new Superheat H1 is a $2,000 water heater that warms up your HTO using the ASICs from Bitcoin mining.
That's so cool.
Yeah, which you're going to have hot water. That's something that nobody, at least in first world countries, is going to go away with once they've had it and grown up with hot water. So this is a cost that you're going to bear, that you are going to pay, but there's no positive externalities of paying it outside of just the hot water. But if you can mine,
we should all have one.
Yeah, we should all have one. I almost need my kid to break my current water heater so I can justify this to my wife. Yeah,
there's been some sort of spa or bathhouse, whatever you want to call it, in New York that's been running their stuff with heaters for years, but
yeah.
Nothing accessible to your average consumer. And some people think that every appliance should be mining as well. Your fridge, your toaster. I don't know how realistic that is. Again, not my expertise, but there's some people out there that are already thinking about this stuff and doing it probably.
Yeah.
When you get into the mining and heating things, that's when you kind of realize that there's always more to learn, because I don't know anything about that stuff. But I think it's super cool, and I would love a mining water heater.
Yeah, love to get those guys on the show. All right, so
let's do it.
Tuesdays we go to prediction markets. Our friends over Predicts. It is a prediction market built on Bitcoin, so encouraging the use of Bitcoin and Sats, and as Lev just mentioned, cheaply can move money versus almost any other method. And instead of stable coins always being the bearer instrument of choice on these platforms, as they've been growing, Polymarket, Kalshi, others, and now Robinhood and Crypto.com, we want to have Bitcoin involved. So we've seen a big shift in some of the big markets, on the platform in the past week. If we go in and, it's trending, these are Bitcoin markets. We just pulled this up later. Bitcoin below 70K in 2026. This was 77, I think, 30 minutes ago or an hour ago when we first started streaming. So we're already seeing a 7% jump in the bearishness in the past hour. What's your feeling right now? I mean, we had a segment earlier that was just guess the bottom. What do you think is your bottom for Bitcoin this
I'm always bullish. I feel like this is the bottom. But, I'm not ready to bet any of my sats on this personally, but I think this is really cool for people who have high conviction at a price level. It should definitely check out Predicts because it seems, if you feel like you can make some money off your good predictions, and if you're a technical guy, then you should go for it. But I'm always surprised at how when these dips happen, it always does seem to go lower than I ever thought possible at the beginning of the dip. So this isn't for me personally, but if you got conviction in your predictions, go for it.
Yeah, I think it's a fun thing. I think if you're, we talked about, we had the Sanjay, the founder of Predicts, on the show, and what we recommend is this is a great way to just like follow the news, see what sentiment is. When you have a particular feeling about or a strong opinion on a topic, go and see what the market's putting their money behind, just to check yourself. Say, hey, do I have all the available information? Am I off base? Would I be off base thinking that in the last election that Biden would have won, or Kamala would have won? What really, the prediction markets were leading towards Trump. So I think they're going to get bigger, more liquid, and it's just a good way to check your understanding of what other people.
I love that it's they take Bitcoin. That's part about it.
That's their focus. So
that's great.
They're trying to do more stuff with agents. They're trying to make it as easy as possible, connect these wallets. One thing to look out for, I think, just with any prediction market, is look at all of, in the description here, is what qualifies or what solidifies the event. So this will be a yes, and the market will close as yes if the Bitcoin, or if the Coinbase Bitcoin USD 1 minute candle low is 70K anytime between January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2026. Meaning it's a 1 minute candle. That's been happening, all over the place. So we could get down to 72, and it's a good floor for 1 minute. A candle goes down and Bitcoin drops to 69,500. And then it immediately shoots back to 72. And then for the most part, for 6 months, people are saying, okay, 72 was the floor. Like, we're not really going to count a 1 minute candle. But in this market, you would lose if you said, or if you voted yes, you would win, because it did go below that. So always look at the qualifiers in these markets, understand, and that's what we want to do. Lev and I are here trying to educate a little bit. It's not
that's fair, but they tell you right up front. But just make sure you check that out. I used to do I stopped doing it, but I used to do a price prediction game for the meetups in like the week leading up to it. Closest prediction gets like 20,000 sats, which just a few beers, nothing crazy, but it gets the group going. But similar, you got to set the exact time, the exact exchange, 8 p.m. even, on whatever.
Height, if you want to,
it can be fun. It can be fun. So maybe this is something I'll check out. I'll let you know how it goes.
Do it. Yeah, we'll get back on. We did commit. We're going to start our own market. We got to figure out exactly what we want to do. I have a few ideas of markets that we can start. Another thing to do, and you've been big on this whole show, BTC MGTOW. I tried to set up a meetup in Montclair, New Jersey, but that was back in 2015. No interest. You, sir, are pretty early if you're 2015.
Try again. Come on.
Yeah. Try again, or meet up with Lev at Jersey City Bitcoin.
Yeah. The X account is Jersey City BTC. You can hit me at NextLev Bitcoin. But there's resources out there. I went to check to see how we could make our meetup better, and I went on Plan B Network, and they have entire tutorials on how to start Bitcoin communities. Good thing we were already doing most of the things that they recommended, but this is what they do. They help communities start up, and they have a step-by-step process, and you can use Club Orange to put up your events. That's a great place to find. That is the best place to find Bitcoin events, I would say, and connect to other Bitcoiners. Again, I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I'm just a fan with all this stuff.
Yeah, it's good to know that. Like, what are people actually using? What are people doing consistent? Like, we do a Bitcoin meetup and it's been going on for like 10 years, I think, or at least 7 to 8 years. And here in Lake Bend, and there's a guy that came over like driving 3 hours, from Portland to come to the meetup. I think there's a meetup in Portland, but likes to switch it up, different crowd. We're definitely a bigger mix of.
Yeah, they're great because it's kind of a bonding experience, because before I found Meetups, I was in the Bitcoin for at least 3 years beforehand, and it's solitary. It's a solitary endeavor. Nobody around you wants to hear it. So when you come to the Meetups, you all have that in common, that none of their friends and family want to hear about them either. So you can come talk Bitcoin, and it's always a lot of fun, and the people turn out to be really cool, So, of course, you're going to get a wide array of people because you have this one special interest in common of Bitcoin, but that special interest happens to be the most important thing in the world right now, right?
Yeah.
The money, the real money. So that's why I coined the term. It hasn't caught on yet, but whenever I say it, people say that they never heard that before, and I call myself a Meetup Maxi. So
hey, look at that! The Meetup Maxi is going to be your handle when you come on now.
There we go. So I try to, go to, as many as I can, go to the meetups, go to conferences, and hang out with other Bitcoiners. And when you can't, hop on spaces. I go on a lot of those. Shout out to the Vibe Sesh out there. That's one of my favorite space groups. But you can always find people talking about Bitcoin anywhere. And tune into the Daily Stack, every day.
Yeah, we need to get more meetup organizers on here. What would you recommend is some of the like pro tips for organizing a meetup, like structure wise, or always having speakers, or having consistency with like Bitcoin price predictions, or ways to make it fun? To
I should say that I did not start Jersey City Bitcoin. That was started by a great guy, James. Shout out to Jimmy out there, and the other main guy, GC. Those two OGs really started, or they did start Jersey City Bitcoin, and I may add that's how I met our friend Rob Wallace as well. So we have a great group there. But if you were just starting out from scratch, I would start with Club Orange, post your event there, create a secondary X profile as the meetup, and just start from there. The Plan B playbook, go through that. They recommend, you can do posters, guerrilla marketing, stickers in your neighborhood. You never know when a Bitcoiner is gonna come across it, and they may be thinking the same thing as you. Hey, I wish I had a meetup, and then you start with two or three people, and then meet people at conferences. That's when for sure there'll be plenty of people. But yeah, start with those things. Club Orange, I think that'll give you a good start.
Yeah, it's also good to go to
a meetup, and anyone I'm fortunate to live in an urban area where there's a lot of people, and some people I talk to about I'm out in the woods. There's no sorry, that's why those guys are in spaces all the time, because they want to talk Bitcoin and can't do it in person.
Yeah, but in-person connection is just so much different. I think we've done a lot of like outside events with families, and there's some guys that are great about that, organizing people. We did a 22-person like steak dinner, which was awesome. Not at someone's house, but we actually there's this thing called like Cowboy Dinner Tree, which is like out in the desert, and it's like a Western like cattle wrangling spot, and you go and you pay $50.
That sounds great. Having some steak. The carnivore diet is big in Bitcoin these days, so that sounds awesome. So you had a big event there. That sounds great.
Yeah, let's see if we can get some pics. Not my own, but I'm willing to share. But like get together with people, like do something, something fun. I think it's been really fun to do it. So you're paying, I think you pay $50, and you're out in the desert, it's an hour and 15-minute drive, and you sit down and you either have steak or chicken. You tell them ahead of time, but you sit down and you have this massive steak cooked over a big fire pit, and you have all these sides, and you have salad and baked potatoes, mac and cheese, biscuits, everything.
That's amazing.
Great experience. If you're ever in Oregon, definitely go to Cowboy Dinner Tree. I'm a big fan, and it's a fun meetup thing.
At least twice as expensive around here for that kind of steak and everything. You've seen steak prices lately. That's great. You can have that.
So, price prediction on the upside this year. You're bull.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. Let's do a bull. Of these markets, are you a 150 guy? That's now sitting at 24%. Are you more conservative, getting back close to what we were at 126, the local high?
I'm definitely more conservative. At the beginning of the year, I still thought that we would be, 250 by the end of 2026, and it could still happen. But I would definitely take the Bitcoin will be over 150K in 2026 still.
Yeah. Things move fast. You never know what's going to happen. We've seen this week, crazy news with the Epstein list coming out, and people on both political spectrums, are on this list. So there's not like we're not choosing sides. We want truth out here. We're also seeing that just Venezuela, you can remove Maduro. We see the debasement trade happening with gold and silver rocketing. And I think that's where a lot of traders have gotten shook out the last couple weeks, is they think that rotation into Bitcoin is immediately going to happen. A lot of Bitcoin podcasters like ourselves are probably talking about it. Like the rotation from gold to Bitcoin is here, Bitcoin $1 million next week. And that kind of rhetoric has landed people to make bad trades if they are short-term focused. So don't be too short-term focused. Rotation may happen. It makes sense on debasement trade, but markets can be irrational, right? They can totally, they don't get self-sovereignty. Like markets are going to behave like they do in the short term. So I think 150K can happen this year. I would put money in this. I think it's a good value at 20%.
Here we go. Yeah, because there's so many scenarios that could lead to the bull run returning very, very quickly. If one country decides to step in, one other big company decides to step in, if AI can really manage people's finances, they'll just either teach people about Bitcoin or just move some money to Bitcoin, because they'll have read all the books, not just the ones I've read. They'll know everything about Bitcoin and know where it's going. So there's a lot of scenarios that can cause a quick shift in how people look at Bitcoin, because as of right now, it's just us Bitcoiners stacking. Maybe 1 out of 100 people really even know what it is. They've just heard about it from a bad article, because the media is obviously been against Bitcoin since day one, which is why it's great that we have shows like this and podcasters everywhere just trying to educate whoever will take a moment to realize that maybe this is something I need to learn about, and once you do, the rabbit hole never ends, as they say.
Yeah, and I think there's too much. We've talked about there's too much top heaviness with 10 Bitcoin podcasts, and then I think this phase we really need to learn from talking about meetups like we did today, of what is resonating with people, what books do people actually want to finish. Finishing a book isn't, you're committing a lot of time, and time is valuable. So what are people trading their time for to read? And is that orange pilling them? Do they come away convicted and showing up to the next meetup? And so I think we have to really humble ourselves as an industry, as a group, to understand, okay, we need to reach the next level of hyper Bitcoinization, of Bitcoin becoming this global store of value. We need to understand what is going to be the language and the methods and how you orange pill someone successfully in 2026. And maybe it's more books, or maybe it's getting more getting Lev to come on and share his experiences. But
I'm happy to. But the good thing is that Bitcoiners out there are already thinking and doing, all kinds of different things aside from writing just books. Although, one of the books I have up here is a fiction thriller that interweaves Bitcoin. That's integral into the story, called Blood of the Bourgeoisie by Michael Sullivan, and that's got a lot of buzz around the Bitcoin Twitter sphere. And then another thing I like is called Mysteries of the Bitcoin Citadel, which is a podcast. It's like an original mystery audio. It's like an audio book in podcast form. That's called Mysteries of the Bitcoin Citadel. And that, maybe somebody comes across that, gets entertained, and they want to learn a little bit more about Bitcoin, because that's integral to that story as well. And all the things I mentioned earlier. So Bitcoiners are out there trying to orange pill the world for sure. But we just need more. We just need more people to find all these things, but it's there.
All right, Blood of the Bourgeoisie, we are dropping in the thread now, making sure everyone's got Lev's recommendations. Lev, I really appreciate you coming on. We didn't plan this. We didn't plan this at all, but I was like, Lev, we've been talking
about Bitcoin anytime.
Yeah, today's a day. We're definitely going to do it again. What do you want to leave us with? Before, you're going to come back. We'll talk books again. We'll talk other orange pilling tools again. But what can you leave us with?
In a day like this, it can get you down a little bit. You just got to remember, 21 million forever. It's a game of accumulation. Most people haven't reached the starting line. Grab your share of the 21 million forever, and that's what you have to keep in mind. So I'll leave you with that.
Love it. All right. And then from our end, always, we're going to say, if you haven't ever used Bitcoin and you're new to it, we would love to help you out, get you started. This is the daily stack page. Come stack sats with 21 rates, Bitcoin news. We have a daily spin wheel presented by Rhino. So might win some sats there. That's going to be the first one. And then we have a sats leaderboard of just different winners of either the daily spin. On Fridays on the daily stack, we do a little bit bigger giveaway for those listeners like we have now. We think the best way, and we're trying, we're learning. Anyone that's interacted with 21 rates on the site, we're trying to find cool ways to help you learn about Bitcoin. So let us know, give us feedback if what works, what doesn't, what do you want to include on here. We'll try to add some of the books that Lev mentioned today as tools that you can share with your friends and family. But point them here and say, hey, go win some sats on 21 rates. Those will be your first ones. You can withdraw it to your own self-custody wallet. Just try that experience. It's really nice and easy. I have Wallet Satoshi and Rhino on my phone, and I withdrew from 21 rates, and boom, notification within seconds that the sats were received. So that could have a magic in itself. That could be the light bulb moment for people.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah. Everyone, we're signing off. It's been the Daily Stack. We'll be back tomorrow. Avi's going to be in here. I believe KT Problem Sniper is going to come on tomorrow. I am not sure who we have before that as a guest, but we appreciate everyone tuning in, and stay humble, stack sats.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jody.
Yeah.